Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. So it was my first time attending COP as well. And I attended as a delegate of the RfP UKIYN International. And I participated in the first week of the conference itself. So I was in the Blue Zone, which is kind of where all the official negotiations happen, most of them behind closed doors, unfortunately. But yes, I guess why I participated in COP, I would say the main reason I was at COP26 was really to kind of observe young people's role and their place at the COPs. So my professional background is a youth worker, and I'm an advocate for the youth voice in decision making, particularly on topics which directly impact and shape young people's lives, like climate change. So for anyone who's not familiar with the kind of work stream of youth voice, it's the pursuit to enable young people or empower young people to have a say in decision-making processes and for their inputs to actually be able to influence decision outcomes. So kind of moving beyond this tokenistic representation of just having young people there, but actually how can we meaningfully engage and create spaces and mechanisms and places where young people can actually influence decisions. And I think I heard one youth participant say it really well at COP. They said, we're not asking to replace anyone at the table, we are just asking for a seat at it. So this, I feel, really represents the plight of many young people that were attending COP26. And I think there were some wins for youth participation at COP26. We saw the launch of the Global Youth Statement, which was organised and created by Youngo, who are the official youth constituency in the UN climate framework. And this statement included the voices of over 40,000 global youth. You also saw the presentation of the Youth for Climate Manifesto, which was created at the Youth for Climate Summit, which was a kind of pre-COP26 youth summit, which happened in Milan. And this again contains concrete proposals from youth. And this was handed to the Italian Minister of the Ecological Transition, Robert Cingolani, and also the COP UK President, Alok Sharma. And they promised to advocate this manifesto among the member state delegations. And kind of after this happened, the Italian government also announced that they would be funding the Youth for Climate Summit forever, they said. So that was really nice to hear. But there are some ways to go before young people are truly recognised as equal partners. So until youth voice is formally integrated in decision making and policy outcomes, there's still a big gap that needs to be addressed. But I also saw that there were kind of many inequalities that exist between young people themselves, and these come out very starkly. Kind of global inequalities come out very, very clearly when you bring youth participation to a global level. So youth participation is pretty common in this country, but it's not a common practice in many countries across the world. And many young people don't have the platforms or the invitations to get involved in decision making. And so they miss out on like training and development opportunities, which are crucial for helping young people to make the most of opportunities that do come up. And also I was speaking to many youth from developing nations who said it's actually quite unsafe for many young people to share their stories and experiences or the realities of what life is like in their countries, as it can make them a target in their countries. So I learned that we really need to be mindful when we're asking young people from other countries to talk on a platform and share their stories, just to make sure that, they're safe. One young person from Kenya, he was explaining that to take part in a climate strike, for example, like the popular Fridays for Futures, that we see in this country, it means risking potential arrest and even being put in a cell with adults. So yeah, just getting kind of consent from young people that actually it's fine for them to share their stories. But kind of beyond youth participation, I learned many things from attending COP. Firstly, and very quickly, just the need to strengthen people's solidarity and consolidating a people's movement for climate action and climate justice at the grassroots. So we can't just wait for direction from the top. There's a need for people to take responsibility kind of at the grassroots. Secondly, that climate action must adopt a human rights-based approach to avoid atrocities against indigenous communities and those with less decision-making power. So, for example, in conservation efforts, they need to be based on the guiding principles of human rights. There are many conservation efforts that actually evict indigenous peoples off their land in the name of conservation. And this is a huge problem that's happening in many parts of the world, and it's largely going unreported. So having a kind of human rights-based approach to all climate action is necessary, and it also will hopefully protect humans and rights to their land, for example. Just two more points very quickly. I think it's really important that we see indigenous communities and young people acknowledged not as victims but leaders of climate action, and we need to listen more and talk less to them. When I say we, kind of us from Western developed countries. And lastly, just to say that I saw real importance and significance for faith groups having a really unique role to play in the conferences. Traditionally in the traditions of communication, and for example, like the Talanoa dialogue, these kind of attempts to transform how negotiations at COP take place and creating space for more reflection, dialogue and discussion. I'm sure I've overrun, but sorry. Thank you so much, everyone.